Story number 1. A Night Out. I'm currently a senior in college, and there's a big bar scene. Students love hanging out at night. It's pretty much the only way to make friends and meet new people. And going out for the night to get special deals on alcohol so you can get plastered with your friends is kind of the go-to here. So on one such night, me and my friends all get dressed up, pre-gaming and pre-drinking at another friend's apartment before we ordered an Uber downtown to one of our pretty well-known college bars. Once we got in, my friends immediately split off into tiny groups spreading out over the club, looking for girls they wanted to shoot their shot. I wasn't really in the mood to meet anyone new that night. I was preoccupied with my studies and had just gotten out of a long relationship. So I was really just there to chill with my friends. I got caught up talking to a stranger and we started playing darts when a girl came up to me. She was pretty cute, probably 5'5", so quite petite, and these really beautiful blonde curls. She had bright green eyes, freckles, and an equally bright smile. All in all, not the kind of person you'd be wary of at all. She asked if she could buy me some drinks since her friends had wandered off to speak to some guys and she wanted some company. I of course accepted because it sounded fun and she seemed really lovely. We chatted, played some darts, and had an all-around nice time. She introduced herself as Jenny and said she was studying as well and didn't live too far away. We stayed there till about 1 a.m. That was normal for the bars there. They all closed around 3 a.m. She was really interested in me and kept asking all kinds of questions. Who was I with? Did I live nearby? Did I live alone? Did I have family in the area? It felt like a really nice change of pace because I'm usually the one learning about other people, not the other way around, so I was really enjoying myself. The whole time we spoke, made eye contact, was smiling, was really making me feel listened to. At some point though, her demeanor began to change. She started becoming more flirty, touching my arm and coming up close to me. I mentioned to her that I'm not a one-night stand kind of guy and that I'd just gotten out of a long relationship. What looked like anger flashed across her face, and I was worried I'd insulted her. I then thought I'd imagined it though, because she quickly replaced it with another smile, and she suggested just going home and watching a movie instead. I agreed and started to pull my phone out to order us an Uber, but as I looked down, she grabbed my wrist and started dragging me to the door. I was so startled I stumbled a bit, and she went, "Come on." I was confused. I asked her if she was planning to drive after drinking, but she just laughed in response. She dragged me outside the club, and she pointed to a black car across the parking lot and said it was hers. I started to feel uneasy. I didn't like the idea of either of us driving after we'd been drinking, and I started to think she was more drunk than I'd realized. She grabbed my wrist to start dragging me again, and that's when I realized something. She claimed she'd driven alone and then met her friends at the bar earlier, but the lane the car was parked in was only for pickups. This was enough to make me uncomfortable, and I asked again if she was planning to drive the car. She said yes as she continued dragging me closer to it. As we got closer, I noticed the outline of 3 other guys in the car. It was as if they were trying to hide inside the car. At that point, my adrenaline kicked in, and I yanked my hand away from her and said there's no way in hell I'm getting in that car with her. She tried begging me one more time, saying we could do anything I wanted, anything at all, but I'd already turned around to head back to the club. She started cussing me out, practically screaming at the top of her lungs as I walked back up to the bouncers to go in. I saw her bang on the window and the doors opened, but I was back in the club before I saw anyone come out. I could still hear her screaming as I walked through the door. At this point, I started to feel shaky, thinking what if I hadn't seen the guys in the car when I did. Story number 2. Cocktail waitress. One of my first jobs was being a cocktail waitress. My shift time was a bit unholy. It was from 5 p.m. until 2 a.m. It wasn't the nicest of jobs. The place was a bit seedy, but it paid the bills, and I was trying to get myself through college. As a waitress, I'd become used to being harassed and to weird comments, particularly from men. It came with the job, and there wasn't anything the managers or any of the other staff could do about it. Usually, it wasn't anything too over the top or frightening. Most customers were regulars who flirted innocently. Up until this night, I'd never felt a sense of danger from any of the customers I'd waited on.
How were you, baby?
On this particular night, I was being harassed by a creepy customer I'd never seen before. He'd made inappropriate remarks all night, commenting on my body, asking if I had a boyfriend, and stuff like that, nonstop. He tried to get my address from me, and he wouldn't stop inviting me back to his. He was relentless with his inappropriate remarks. At one point, I was serving him his drink. He reached out and put his hand on my butt. After that happened, I never went back to his table again. I decided if he wanted another drink, he'd have to go up to the bar and ask the bartender. This happened back in the late 90s, so it was a time when there were very little consequences to that kind of behavior. The bartender only made customers leave when they were far too drunk to sit on a bar stool or at a table. Otherwise, it was up to us to deal with any creepy customers, and the place didn't have the extra money to hire security. At closing time, he had no choice but to leave. Even though he was gone, I still felt such a sense of unease, but I chalked it up to the fact that he'd touched me. I wasn't easily spooked, but this guy had really freaked me out. There was just something off about him, and no one had dared to actually put their hands on me before. It took me nearly an hour after closing to finish cleaning up and to prepare the bar for the following day. So it was about 3 a.m. when I finally made my way through the dark parking lot to get to my car. It was such a deserted and isolated place at night. The parking lot had woods that surrounded it. That, in and of itself, was creepy. But as I was about halfway to my car, out of the corner of my eye, I saw him. He'd been crouching behind a car, not too far from where I was. I felt sick when I realized that he had been waiting over an hour for me to come out. I started to run towards my car. I was freaking out, mentally preparing what to do if he managed to get a hold of me. I ran as fast as possible. I made it to the car, managed to get my keys out in time, and jumped inside the car and locked the door. It was just in the nick of time because this man was now at my driver's side window, demanding that I roll it down. He kept yelling that he didn't want to hurt me, he only wanted to talk. He tried scratching my car window and pressing his face up against it. He began to pound on the window as I fumbled with my keys to try to get the hell out of there. I began to worry that he'd shatter my window. Finally, I got my car started, and as I put the car into reverse and backed out, he began to scream bloody murder. He was yelling for me to stop because I'd run over his foot. I don't know if I actually did run over his foot, but I wasn't going to stop anyway. Once home, I called the police. They came to take my report and get my description of the guy. At this point, I wasn't certain about whether I had injured him or not. I explained all of this to the police officer. The police sent another officer to the parking lot to see if he was still there and suffering from an injury. He wasn't. Nobody called the police to report a hit and run either. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the stories, please hit the like button or let us know what you think in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel for more creepy stories. And if you have experienced a creepy story yourself that you want us to narrate, please send us an email. You'll find contact information below.